Good afternoon, I'm Sean Yao, and this is One News Now. Justice Secretary Boying Remulla slammed the International Criminal Court after it resumed its probe into former President Rodrigo Duterte's war on drugs. In a press briefing, Remulla said that the move is insulting to the Philippines and emphasized that the ICC has no jurisdiction over the Philippines. While the government is willing to provide relevant data, the Justice Secretary said that the ICC imposing its power on the Philippines is unacceptable. Remulla has yet to discuss this matter with President Bongbong Marcos.
I do not get it. Why they insist on entering the Philippines in spite of the fact that we are no longer members? They're insulting us.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte shrugged off the ICC's decision to resume the investigation into his administration's drug war. Duterte's counsel and former spokesperson, Attorney Harry Roque, reiterated that his client will never appear before a foreign court. Roque said that Duterte will only submit himself to Philippine courts. Moving on to other stories, the Commission on Elections upheld its decision to recognize the PDP Laban wing chaired by former President Duterte instead of the faction led by Senator Coco Pimentel. The COMELEC Ombank said there's no more reason to overturn the Special Second Division's earlier ruling. This means the petition of PDP Laban's Duterte wing to declare the other faction as illegitimate has been granted. Meantime, Pimentel's faction said they will challenge the COMELEC's ruling before the Supreme Court. And the libreng sakay at the EDSA busway carousel may not return after all. Instead of free rides, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board is thinking of offering discounted fares to passengers and fuel subsidies to drivers. This is the LTFRB's way of stretching the 1.2 billion pesos allotted for the Libreng Sakay program. The LTFRB noted that the new scheme will cover all public transportation instead of just buses on the EDSA carousel.
Kung ang pinag-iisipan po natin is totally libre na sakay, hindi po kakayanin. In fact, pag ginamit mo lang yan sa EDSA, doon sa carousel nila, that would only be good for 3 or 4 months. Para maisama po lahat ng mga transportasyon, magbibigay ho sila ng discount.
A word of caution to commuters. Reports have it that fake TNVS drivers are picking up passengers and charging them more than the regulated fare. Online accounts say that a certain driver of a black SUV has been going around the metro. While on the trip, the driver will charge passengers with fares that are higher than the TNVS app-generated fees. The LTFRB has identified this driver and has issued him a show cause order. Ride-hailing service Grab also confirmed that this SUV is not registered with them. For those wondering about this modus, one victim shares his experience. Let's take a listen.
Naka-on yung screen ng phone ko, bigla siya lumapit. Siguro, take advantage niya yung nakita niya sa phone ko na nagbubok kami ng Grab. So, lumapit siya, sabi niya, "Sir, nagbubok na yung Grab." Feeling close siya, sir, feeling close. Tapos, bigla niyang kinancel yung booking ko. Sabi ko, "Sir, bakit mo kinancel yung booking ko?" Sabi niya, "Sir, para wala na daw paltas si Grab. Para daw direct na daw lahat sa kanya kita." Siningil po niya ako, sabi niya, "Pwede na bang mahingi yung 300 niya ako?" Sabi ko, "Sir, sabi ko, bakit po 300? Grab rate lang po."
We'll be pausing for a quick break, but One News Now will be back with more stories after that. Keep it here. News Now, I'm Sean Yao. The House Committee on Constitutional Amendments started formal deliberations on proposed changes to the 1987 Constitution. Marian Enriquez with the details.
The deliberation of the pending measures.
Is it time to amend the Constitution? If so, how? These were the initial questions of members of the House Committee on Constitutional Amendments. 5 measures were filed before the lower house, pushing for a constitutional convention to make amendments in the 1987 Constitution. Delegates will be elected from every legislative district to propose amendments. For former Supreme Court Associate Justice Vicente Mendoza, there's an urgent need to amend the Constitution due to the amendment clause in Article 17 being very ambiguous. It does not state if the 2 houses of Congress must sit jointly or separately, or vote as one or not in a constituent assembly or constitutional convention.
This has been a problem since the 1987 Constitution, Mr. Chairman, and it has not been resolved. You make that ambiguous. You make it difficult for people to amend the Constitution. It lacks the details. What do you have? You might have a revolution.
Mendoza says the amendment clause is an essential part of the Constitution. But for attorney Christian Monsod, who was one of the framers of the Charter, the Constitution is not the problem.
The Constitution, Your Honors, is not the problem. It is part of the solution. Why don't you pass those first? And then let's see whether they work and won't need any change in the Constitution anymore.
Monsod warned that if the phrase "unless otherwise provided by law" is inserted to loosen restrictive economic provisions, this will make legislators too powerful by allowing them to propose changes just by passing regular laws without the need for a vote by the Filipino people through a plebiscite.
The door is open wider to transactional legislation at which corrupt politicians and greedy business are very adept.
But for attorney Adolfo Azcuna, the economic policies should be adjustable to the needs of the country, especially since it has been 36 years since the Constitution was made.
We need foreign investment in order to recover from the twin impact of inflation and the pandemic. And yet we are constrained by economic policies that are not meant to last 36 years.
Constitutional Amendments Panel Chairman Rufus Rodriguez meanwhile said that they will visit different parts of the country to hold public consultations on the matter. For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
And here's a quick look at today's other top stories. Pampanga has adopted former President Rodrigo Duterte as a son of the province. 2nd District Representative and former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo shared snaps of the ceremony held in Clark. Duterte was welcomed by Arroyo and other officials of Pampanga. The MMDA says the proposed single ticketing system in Metro Manila is still on track for implementation in March. MMDA spokesperson Melissa Carunungan says it could be approved by as early as February 1 if the Metro Manila Council does not have any more objections. Under this system, the 20 most common violations will have a standard fine across the NCR. And the Integrated Bar of the Philippines will open a legal aid center over at the Quezon City Hall of Justice. The center will provide legal assistance to those in need, but do not qualify for the services of the Public Attorney's Office. The IBP is now pooling lawyers for the center. And Filipinos are gaining more recognition, not only on the international stage, but also in outer space. Proof of that is a physics student from UP Los Baños whose experiment could help in future space explorations. The details from mobile journalist Francis Orsio.
Out of over 200 experiment proposals received by the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency or JAXA for the Asian Tri-Zero G 2022 competition, only 6 entries were chosen to be performed inside the International Space Station. Making it to the list is the microgravity experiment proposed by UP Los Baños applied physics student William Abran. Abran's experiment is called rotation of dumbbell-shaped objects in space. But what exactly is it about?
tinetest lang namin or ino-observe lang namin kung magiging stable ba yung rotation ng ganitong shape, yung tinatawag kong dumbbell shape. Kasi pagdating sa space, may mga huggies na kapag pinaikot sa specific na direction, bigla silang bumabaliktad o nag-flip ng rotation ng hindi ginagalaw. So, it's just nice to observe lang din and confirm kung tama ba yung expectation natin sa mga ganitong shape.
The experiment was successfully performed last week, not by Abran, but by astronaut Koichi Wakata inside the Japanese experimental module Kibo. Though the proposal sounds and looks simple, this experiment could actually be helpful in future space explorations.
Pwede rin ito magamit as concept ng mga future designers pagdating sa spacecraft designing, kumbaga.
Aside from spacecraft design, the Philippine Space Agency says this test could also offer a real-life example affirming the validity of Newton's laws of motion and Ehrenfest theorem in microgravity. With the success of the experiment, Abran hopes that similar research in the country will receive more support. He believes Filipino scientists have all the potential to keep up with the space research and development of other nations.
So yeah, I hope more people support yung mga ganitong uri ng gawain, lalo na sa research. Kasi sa huli, ang mag-benefit naman dito ay yung society natin.
Mobile journalist Francis Orsio, We Are One News.
For more updates, visit News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com and stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I am Sean Yao. We are One News.